You're listening to the SoleStrategies podcast with your hosts Z. Cohen Sanchez and Chris Abramson. If you're running for office or thinking about it, you're in the right place. We hope you enjoy the latest episode and thanks for tuning in. Hey everybody, I'm just going to be sharing this real quick. Like always, we'll wait for folks to jump on.
I hope our title and description of the live was clickbaity and alluring enough. Will your campaign survive a Trump 2020 presidency? Tune in here to find out.
Totally.
Cool.
What do people do at this beginning dead time?
What do people do?
Yeah.
Introduce, and oftentimes some people who go live a lot will encourage people to go to SoleStrategies Facebook and give it a like and a follow so you know when we're live next time.
Do that.
And I hope my cat doesn't knock over our camera really quick. I'm really interested in it. Yeah, go to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just give it a follow, give it a like. That way you'll know when we're serving up hot tea on local politics, when we're giving out free tips and tricks to do a better campaign, advice on what seat you should run for. We do all sorts of cool, informative podcasts. We're on various podcast services?
Yes, we're on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I think that's a thing. Pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, we're there.
Great.
We definitely post that up usually night of. So if you ever do miss an episode, then you can catch it there later.
Great.
Which is super exciting.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So I've shared this now. So yeah,
Great.
Let's get started. Let's talk.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about what does your campaign look like in a Trump presidency versus a Biden presidency?
This is a question we get a lot.
It's pressing.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are.
It's probably one of the most expensive, not probably, it's going to be the most expensive election in human history. There's so much corporate interest and so much at stake, I think, that it's like a tidal wave coming, you know what I mean? That is the feeling I get, and just what I see happening. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, with the just massive expense of what's going to be happening?
It's interesting because, in the United States of America, we have the most expensive elections in the world, right? It's, we outspend every country, sometimes 10, 20 to 1. And it's, you would think that at some point we would fizzle out of that, because at some point, you're going to sort of hit a point where it just doesn't work anymore, because there's too much money flowing in and out of these elections, but it's really just gotten worse and worse.
Right.
And so, not to say that it's a terrible thing to have money in a campaign, because obviously we wouldn't do what we do if we thought that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
But there is, I think that we both agree that the type of money matters. Where is that money coming from? A lot of folks that we get on the phone with are really concerned about where their money is coming from, and we think that that's fantastic, because you should be concerned about where your money is coming from. There's a huge difference on if you're taking money from unions, regular everyday working class folks, organizations that agree politically with you, than if you're taking it from millionaires and billionaires. And that's really sort of the breakdown of that is, the money, not only is this the most expensive election, but where the money is coming from has gone more towards corporations than it ever has.
Right.
And is continuing to go down that route. And so we're not here to tell you to go down that route. In fact, we're telling you quite the opposite. But we are saying that you do need to be focused on money. It is just, the reality is that it's a huge part of this current election, and it's going to continue to be a big part of our future elections.
Right, because the progressive candidates are going to have to out-fundraise the most funded political representatives from the establishment ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's going to be a lot of work.
A lot of people say, too, that, a big concern is, how much money you raise on a campaign doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. That's true, right? just because you outraise an incumbent does not necessarily mean that you have the ability to win. But what it does mean is that when things get thrown at you, that you're able to respond to them, right? So like if a negative ad comes your way, you're able to respond to it.
Right.
I know it's a little bit off topic from what we're talking about, but it does really tie in because, as we've said, this is the most expensive election in American history. So let's talk a little bit about what I feel like we're gonna look back on this in the next couple of years and we're gonna be like, oh my God, if there is a next couple of years. But
right.
you know,
Yes.
we're in a really, I mean, we're in a weird time, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a weird time.
Most certainly. Yeah. It's funny that, you know, we kind of racked our brains a little bit for like differences that would pop out in a Trump campaign versus a Biden campaign. And please, like, if you have anything you want to say, comments are on there. I see we got some people that I know watching. Feel free to drop a comment if you want to throw something out as a topic about differences. But mostly what we came up with were similarities. You know, this giant influx of corporate money is going to happen on both sides. The establishment Democrats are going to get fantastically funded. The establishment Republicans and even the far right are going to get extremely well funded. And that's just it really is beholden to progressives that don't sit on either side of those camps to really dig in their heels and dig deep and run campaigns that are effective and basically just seize those seats. Carpe de political seat. Really. Because we're gonna have to go in there and kind of grab it. I mean, or it's just going to fall to that money. Money is a necessary part of running a successful campaign. Mm-hmm. It also is a way that people will bury you if they have ties to very wealthy, very important people. And the establishment's been operating the way that it's been operating for a really long time, just because it's been established that way. Definitely, they will use their power and money and influence to bury progressive candidates that want to talk about the stuff we need to hear, like police reform, or abolishing the police, or abolishing ICE, or closing detention centers, or any of the things that, decriminalizing drugs, the things that various seats can do. Mm-hmm. So.
I know a lot of people at this point too, and not to sort of shift the subject, but I know a lot of people that are probably watching this are really upset about what happened to Bernie, and so I think we should talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But I think that, from a perspective of somebody that did a lot of work on that campaign, not just in 2020, but also 2016, and that has been involved with progressives very like-minded to Bernie for a very long time. Bernie, we sort of knew what was going to happen when we went into it, right? Like, we all sort of had the feeling that we were going to essentially have a repeat of 2016. And we didn't know exactly how that was going to look, which was sort of the question that was up in the air. But the question of, is this going to happen? Is Bernie going to be screwed out of this position? The answer was always going to be yes, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of folks that have sort of done this work and sort of really understand this work. But I also want to really remind folks that when Bernie stepped down in 2016, and I believe he said this again when he stepped down in 2020, that not me, us isn't just a slogan. Not me, us means that we all need to play our part and we need to be part of this political revolution. The political revolution is not Bernie Sanders. Bernie's a figurehead of the political revolution, no doubt. But so are folks like AOC, and so are folks like Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush now, who just, had an awesome election. And by the way, Cori Bush, for those of you guys who aren't following Cori Bush, took out not just an incumbent, not just a long-term incumbent, but somebody who is literally part of a dynasty. Like I know that his father was in that seat before him. I think his grandfather was somehow involved.
Wow.
It was a lot, like 50 plus years of the Clay dynasty, and she was able to break through. And yeah, she wasn't able to break through the first time, but how many times did Bernie run? I mean, I saw the other day, there was an article that Bernie had put out there. I think it was, not Bernie, but the Vermont Review, or one of those like local papers in Vermont, in Burlington. And it was in 1978, and at that point, Bernie, I think he got like under 10% of the vote or something the first time he ran, and continued to run, ended up winning his mayoral seat by less than 10 votes. and then has, obviously worked his way up to Congress, to the Senate, and then obviously, the last 2 attempts at the presidency, which he should have won. And
that is how you get your talking points down perfectly without changing them for so very many years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really true. That is such a fact. And when Bernie ran in 2016, he asked everybody to step up and run. And about 7,000 people or 8,000 people signed up that day on the website. I remember following it very closely. And they signed up to run for all different types of positions. And that's the energy that we work with. Those are the folks that we want to see really come to fruition and make this happen. But in order to do that, you got to do it right, which is what we're here to talk about. A lot of people are really, really fearful of the next couple weeks, but let me tell you, it's going to be a lot longer than that. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the reality is it's going to be a lot longer than that. So Trump has said that he's not willing to step down from his seat, and he might not have said this quote unquote directly, but he's implied it many times. He's confirmed that he's implied it. So the reality is that Democrats in pretty much every Democratic state at this point, it's mail-in voting, right? Which we can have a whole live just on mail-in voting, whether you agree with that or not. We're not really here to talk about that. But, the reality is that that's the way that it is right now. Republican states are still voting in person. So on election night, in a couple weeks, we are going to see that most of the states that come in for Trump initially are going to be Republican states.
Right.
And he's going to win in those,
right.
Obviously.
Yes.
He's the Republican candidate.
Right.
And a lot of the mail-in ballot states, Oregon, where we're at right now, is one of them, Washington, a whole bunch of states in this country, some of them that have more voters than any other Republican state, are not going to be counted. Some of them could not be counted until the end of November. There are some states, I think Washington's one of them, there are a couple states where they can't even begin to count the early ballots until the night of November 4th of the election. So it's really important to realize that. And when we talk to a lot of folks, they're like, I really want to run for office, but I gotta wait until this election's over. So what would you tell them, Chris?
I think it's there. We're beholden to do things as quickly as we can. Like, there's no time to waste on, changing environmental policy, on changing, police accountability policy, drug policy. So much of our democracy and, the political machine is just fueled by, essentially antics and money. Mm-hmm. And, people that understand what other people in their community need because they're a part of it. We're beholden to go in there and fight as soon as we can with everything that we've got. If, especially, Trump is threatening to erode pretty heavily our democracy by essentially just not accepting that we may not vote again for him. So, I think it's a really important time ASAP. I remember the thing, we're mentioning Bernie Sanders a lot in this live. I don't know why, but...
we love Bernie.
Yeah, because Bernie got a bird on his podium and Pence got a fly on his head, and it's like nature knows. Damn. Yeah. So I remember this, the old TV shows that Bernie used to do where he would just roll
Bernie
up on
Talks.
people. Bernie Talks, yeah.
I love it.
He would just roll up on people and, that is essentially, he was canvassing. He was basically canvassing.
That's exactly what he was doing.
And he was just doing it on video, which is hilarious because...
Back in the 80s, too.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
The video quality was horrible.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear, every... You could only get every second word.
It's so great. Even then, it's he understood the power of tapping into the grassroots and really, being that candidate that can understand the needs of your community because you're a part of it. And we need to bring that back. It can't be just... that's why SoleStrategies exists, because, we're here to bring you the skills that really well-funded campaigns have and that they use to be successful and to win, but to do it at a price that you can afford, so that you can be the next person who can actually, change that law and make the future better. And so as far as when people should get involved, I think, we're beholden to right now. That's all we really have.
That it's true. And it's a lot of people, especially, we've mentioned this quite a few times, but I'll continue to mention it, that in the progressive community, we have a real issue with the idea of money and what that means. Not everybody, but a lot of folks are afraid of taking money. They're afraid of having that abundance. And I think that, that fear can come from all sorts of places. No matter who you are, whoever is watching this right now, you have some type of fear around money. Everybody does. I do, you do, we all do. And that can stem from a million different things. That can stem from maybe you didn't have enough of it. Maybe you had a lot of it, but it didn't do what you needed it to do. It could be so many different things. But the idea is that we have to really sort of get over this hump. And there are ways to do that. There is a lot of mindset work that we do when you work with us about, getting over that hump of the fear of money and what that means. And so, the whole goal isn't just for you to make money, just to have money in your campaign. The goal is to use that money for organizing. So when we talk about, the most funded campaign doesn't necessarily win, you're right. I mean, that's true. But what does happen is, if you have the money and you use that money correctly, that's when you see winners, right? So you can't just make the money and sit on it. That's not the sort of campaigns that we run. And a lot of incumbents, by the way, do that. Yeah. And it's really, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand, like, if you have money, why wouldn't you use it for your campaign? And there can be a lot of reasons why.
If you're Ted Wheeler, you just give yourself $150,000.
I was thinking about that when I said
Sorry, I had to say it.
It's so hard not to rag on Ted Wheeler,
just loan yourself.
Vote for Sarah. That's exactly what happens, right? Is that the way that the money goes out the door is so important.
Yeah.
And Bernie has done that so fabulously well, and so many other progressives have too that have done this correctly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're organizers. We believe in organizing, but we also know as organizers that costs a lot of money. Organizing costs money.
And it takes time.
Yes, which is also money.
It takes work. I mean, that's it. You can't just, money doesn't fall out of the sky. You have to go get it. And it is absolutely there for you when you cast your net. It's fantastic. I mean, your ability, all the establishment Democrats even, and a lot of even progressives are kind of just slippery. It's really hard for them to actually get into their community. I mean, it just brings to mind somebody we were just talking about. But it's really hard for them to get actually into their community, and even if they label themselves as a progressive Democrat or whatever, an establishment Democrat, they're not likely to really show their face around places unless it's a PR move. And having people that can do that, that can actually reach out to folks and really hear them. When you cast that kind of net, it's really, really profitable. It's really, really effective. It may not be, it takes humility and humbleness to, do call time and just, call 100 people a day and talk to, some, little old lady's issues about her community and, hear her, and, a Black Indigenous person of color, hear their issues about their community, all the different range of different people that could live where you live. It takes, work, time, money, effort. It doesn't just fall out of the sky, but I don't know. I think reaching out to the grassroots that way, when you are teamed up with a group who knows what they're doing and you're doing it correctly, it's far more effective than the top-down corporate model that, Bernie proved that. He raised more money.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's that.
And Bernie started, I read an awesome article about Bernie just a couple months ago that was in the New York Times that I suggest everybody read, where I can't remember the title of it, but it was something to the effect of how Bernie started his campaign in a public service laundry room in public housing, right? So he used to just sit in the public housing laundry room and talk to people that would come in there and do their laundry, because it made sense, right? People had so much time. They were doing their laundry. They're not doing anything else. Huh. This was the 80s. They didn't have phones to play on.
Smart canvassing.
Yeah, very smart canvassing.
Yeah, well.
But again, when you're tapping into the grassroots like that, there's so much money to be made in that, and not money, and we're not saying to take advantage of that or to feel like you're taking advantage of that. People want to donate to you,
right?
They really do.
People want the change.
Exactly, and not everybody wants to run for office, but they want to support folks that will run for office, and that means something. It means something to people to be an early donor. It means something to be able to really support that person throughout their journey, and then to see the effect of that in their community. That's
Yeah.
really what
It's empowering.
it's very empowering for
Like,
people.
yeah, that's what we need more of.
Yeah. So people think that there's no money out there, but if that was the case, then Trump and Biden wouldn't be raising billions of dollars right now.
I've knocked on so many doors and made so many campaign phone calls that the person had essentially never been reached out to by anybody.
That happens all the time.
And it boggled my mind. I like knock on their door, they come to the door, hear my little spiel or whatever, give me, their $50 political tax credit or whatever, and and they don't really even want to hear much about it. And I'm kind of like, what inspired you to give today? And they're like, well, this is the first time anyone ever actually just reached out to me like this. So I'm just going to get behind you because that's
Why
kind of,
not? Right?
yeah, because it's the first time anyone's actually walked all the way up the driveway to knock on this door. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
So how do you think the political landscape's going to look if Biden wins versus Trump? I mean, do you think that it's going to significantly shift things? What do you think?
I mean, at the risk of sounding really bleak, I feel like it could be worse or worser.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, yeah, I don't know what to say. I just think, regardless, as much as I rack my brain for like differences or things that will be, that will change the political landscape, it's like all I can really think of is similarities and ways that like, no matter what, it's just really important. If you believe in certain campaign platforms, like a Green New Deal, or like universal, healthcare for everybody. If you believe in, abolishing ICE, or as little as police reform, let alone abolishing the police and redistributing those funds back to communities that have been, impacted. Like, if you believe in these platforms, regardless, you're going to have to get involved because the Biden machine isn't going to stop the $9 billion a year deportation machine that allows the ICE camps to become extremely profitable.
Yeah, they're not.
Biden's not going to stop private prisons that drive, selective enforcement of laws that, disproportionately affect people of color. Biden's not going to stop that train.
No, definitely not. That's true.
They're not. So,
Yeah.
if you're a local citizen, or you're thinking about running, or you're in the running, or you're getting there, you should reach out to us because we can help you make it look really, really nice and be successful and win and look the way that it should. And it's really beholden to us.
If you've never, and that's the thing is that, so, as I said, we've had a lot of folks that have reached out that said, I want to start this, but I feel like I need to wait until the 2020 election's over. And so what would you tell them, Chris?
If you can wait to run, you should still start building. Right now is your building phase then. Because I have definitely seen a campaign take a year to plan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time.
All the time.
Especially if you're running for federal office.
Yeah, just sit and plan for a year.
And a lot of people think too that there's this like correlation between starting your campaign and announcing your campaign. And let me just tell you, those are two very, very, very different things. Very, very different. So you might be starting to fundraise now, but you have not announced your campaign, and that is completely normal and completely fine. So that's something that's typical. You should actually be doing that. If you're announcing when you don't have any type of money, you don't have any type of infrastructure, you don't have any type of strategy or plan, that's not a good leg to start.
Right.
You really need you need to have some money behind you. And the reason I say that is because you're going to be filing your reports, right? For pretty much any office that you're running for, you're going to be filing reports. If you announce your campaign and you file with $0, you're already starting out by people thinking that this is not going to be a serious campaign.
Right.
I mean, it sucks to say that because I wish that wasn't the case,
Yeah.
but I'm just the messenger. I'm just telling you word on the street. That's what it is.
Definitely, because you're the incumbent, or the people you're running against are absolutely looking up, your campaign expenditure report sheet online.
Yeah, and most incumbents are starting with 1.5, sometimes $2 million cash on hand. So it can look embarrassing. You don't want that to happen, and it doesn't need to happen. You don't need to run a campaign that way. There's no reason to run a campaign that way. You can easily start your campaign. You might not start with $2 million, but like you could have a significant showing. But in order to do that, you got to learn how to fundraise. absolutely essential. You have to learn how to fundraise. We talk about this a lot because obviously this is what we do. This is something that we're really passionate about. But fundraising does not need to be painful.
No.
Everybody hates it.
Yeah.
And I get it because I used to hate it too. It used to be like the most dreaded thing ever, the idea of fundraising. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And
it doesn't.
It's going to continue to be that way, and progressives are going to see it that way if they don't get the help that they need, if they don't get the training that they need. Because essentially, I mean, would you walk into a computer job on your first day, an IT professional job with no training? Like, you would fail straight away.
Yeah.
And like, it wouldn't be helpful to you. It wouldn't be helpful to the employer.
Right.
It wouldn't be helpful to anybody involved. So what we're saying is that it doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be a crappy thing that you just have to do because you have to do it. It can be exciting. It can be fun. It can be something that really drives the vision for your campaign. But to do that, you can't go at it alone. I've personally never seen anybody successfully fundraise that way. Every person I've seen successfully fundraise from the grassroots has had a lot of help.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that's why we're here. If we can share our experience of working in so many different states and so many different races and so many different situations and communities, if we can expedite that process for you and make it what if we can make a lot of 10-hour projects 1-hour projects because you have our help and our guidance, it's like that's going to save you a lot of hours and a lot of money. So it's worth investing a little bit if you're serious, and and reaching out to people that are here for you to help expedite those things and make it easy for you.
Yeah, for sure. And so like I think that really sort of to wrap this into a little bow is that whether Trump wins this, I mean, obviously we're not telling you who to vote for. Personally, I'm very likely voting for Biden. I think that he's the better option. Our company would always tell you to vote for the lesser of two evils in this situation because I mean we don't want fascism to happen. That's incredibly important. But when we're talking about how this country is going to look in 2 weeks to 4 weeks from now, whether that is a Biden presidency, we already know that Trump's not going to be stepping down. Who knows how that whole process is going to play out. But say that, it's a clear victory, Biden wins the election, right? There is not going to be the change that you think that you're going to see.
Don't get complacent.
Yeah, and people, this is not the time to fall back asleep. We are awake. Portland's awake. I think a lot of parts of the country are awake. We're coming up on something like 120 days of straight protests. Other states are giving us a run for our money too, have been out there pretty much every night since George Floyd was killed brutally by the police. This is not the time to be complacent. We cannot stress that enough. Yet things are going to get significantly worse if we have 4 more years of Trump. Totally get that. That's definitely going to happen. And if that's the case, whether you start, that shouldn't be stopping you from starting now, is what we're saying.
Right.
Whether Trump wins the election or Biden wins the election is not going to make any difference in your fundraising efforts. It's not going to make any difference in the way that you conduct your campaign. It's not going to make any difference in how you are personally about to really affect your community. If you are even thinking about running for office, that is a service to your community and something that people are looking for. And we're here to encourage you to not wait until somebody says it's your turn, not to wait until, Trump or Biden get in, or your state senator, or, whoever. The decision should be yours entirely, and the decision should happen with urgency. And the urgency is right now. We are in an urgent moment in America, and we are, we are gently telling you that this is an urgent moment, and that we need leaders that are willing to step up and meet that moment.
Okay, so see, I'm like a viewer. And I'm like, wow, I'm really inspired and impassioned by these people. I want to run. What should I do?
Get on the phone with us straight away. Call us. So there's a couple of ways that you can get in touch with us. That's super important. Chris has got a fake phone right over here. He can tell you exactly how to do it. But there's a lot of ways that you can get in touch with us. we have a social media staff that is on our social media channels there to answer your questions. That is what they're there to do. You can message us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and ask any question that you want answered, whether that is you're looking for a specific seat and you don't know the specifics of that seat, you don't know whether you can fundraise now, you have to wait till later when you can register, all the sort of nuances that go into that. We have folks that are waiting ready to answer your questions for that. So that's a really important resource to know that you have. But what is really sort of critical is that you ask them for our direct phone number. And what that will do is it'll put you through to either Chris or myself, who will be able to schedule a 15-minute call with you. Another way that you can schedule a call is that you can email us. You can go to info@sole.strategies.com and you can send us an email and say, hey, really interested about XYZ race, or even you might not even know what race you're running in, and that's totally fine, but just that you're interested in running for office, and ask us give us some times that you're available, and we will set up a 15-minute call for you totally for free to answer your questions.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That sounds really easy.
It is super easy, and don't worry about pricing. This is another thing. We don't consider ourselves to be consultants. I think that when I think of a consultant, I think of like some like white guy in LA in like an air-conditioned room, like looking down on everybody, telling them like how to run a campaign. That is not what we do. We are boots on the ground. We are a political organization. We do the grunt work. We are affordable for working class people. We do that on purpose. We could charge astronomical amounts of money, but we choose to not do that because we are here to help you guys. So even if you are completely broke, you don't think that you can afford anything, I'm sure that there is something that we can do to help you out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. So your campaign can survive a Trump 2020 presidency. You just need to call us and work with us and show up to the table looking pretty, with a lot in the coffers and boots on the ground and people doing the work that it's going to take to get you there.
So much of this work is just showing up. So
Yep.
much of this work is just making the initial call, right? Like it's like so much of life. I think Woody Allen said that showing up is like 99% of your way to success. Like that is so
Right.
true, because so many
true.
people just don't show up. And so if you have the ability to show up and that you know that you can do that, that's really all it takes. All it takes is showing up. The money, we can talk, that comes later. The process, all of that comes later. We're here to solve the problem, so we want to hear what your problem is, and we will help you solve it.
Awesome. Speaking of showing up, thank everybody who did show up today.
Yeah.
That's going to be the live, and keep tuning in. Go to SoleStrategies and give us a follow, and go ahead and share the group if you would like. That would be awesome. Make sure you like the page, and then you can see when we go live, when we talk about things, serve up hot tea on local politics, and talk about different things that your campaign can do to be better.
Totally. This was great.
Yeah.
Thanks, friend. Have a good day, everybody.